Hello and welcome to yet another week of Indiepocalypse Radio. Your weekly, what did I call this thing? Halfway between your post-con hang on an interview, you find yourself Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm your host, Andrew, the editor, uh, the everything associated with Indiepocalypse except making the games and the covers involved. We are here to chat with, artists, game developers from around the world. We are here with, if you're live right now, no, not live. In my delay, you're live. But if you thought back 4, 5, 6 seconds ago to that cover with the guy with the little magnifying glass, that was related to our first guest, who is an editor at Koosh Comics, is David Shelter. David, how are you doing today?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. Had some relaxing Saturday. Took off work for once.
Oh yeah, no, I am. I have a nice Monday to Friday. Of course, because indie podcast does not pay what they call the bills. So my weekends are strictly for relaxing. I
Yeah, that's good. I think that's really important. I
yeah.
used to work like every day, but then I realized, yeah, it's need to do some breaks.
Yes. It's like
Yeah.
I often say if I did that, if I like was like grinding all day nonstop, I would have stopped doing this like 3 years ago. I just would have fried myself completely because
Mm,
as it turns out, maybe the point of human life is not the hustle. Maybe sometimes you just need to relax.
yeah, and you hustle a lot. I see you just did issue 50 of your indie of
Y-
the magazine,
yes,
right?
yes. I'm looking right now at the cover. I've caught up. Or
It's funny, we have next week we have issue 50 of Kush, so we have kind of same time anniversary, but we
yes,
do only three times a year, not once a
right.
month.
No, I do it at a more manic clip. But if people aren't
Mm.
familiar with Koosh, how would you describe it?
Well, we're a publisher, let's say, like small press indie comics publisher based in Latvia. We publish international comics, like mini comics, small books, and anthologies. And well, next to that, we also organize like events, workshops, exhibitions. We have a comic residency here in Latvia. And yeah, so basically, just a publisher. It's not enough as you do a lot of events around it. So we're
Right,
kind of
right.
like a comics hub. I don't know.
That kind of small press lifestyle where you just kind of do a lot of everything. Uh,
Yeah, and they do also events to keep it more interesting, not just like sitting in the office and publish books, but
yeah, right.
yeah, meet people and try to promote the medium. And well, in Latvia, there's really no comic tradition. You probably can't imagine, like in the US, you have like such big tradition. In Latvia, there's nothing.
Right,
So with
right.
Kush, we kind of try to promote it and like make at least start small community around.
Yeah, like
But it's also fun. So we're like a monopoly of comics. There's no one. Well, there's some Donald Duck magazine, I think, which you can buy in the kiosk, but they're not that popular. So,
right. It's a very different like even in my lifetime we had comics at like grocery store. They were the digest style ones, but they still existed at like grocery checkouts. That's not true anymore, I believe. But yeah, it is. Uh, it's the strange thing of despite being whether or not your country, your region has a history of an art form doesn't mean you don't want to make it as a
mm,
person. So it's a important crucial thing to be like, hey, we also make comics here.
Yeah, we invite like a lot of international contributors, well, like you do, and try to get Latvian artists collaborating with foreign artists, and
Right.
and we're doing it for almost 17 years now, and yeah, we're like still super small. I don't want to expand. I enjoy being like a small press publisher.
Right. Right.
But in a way, I guess we've been kind of successful, like in the comic scene, this indie comic scene. Somehow people know us a bit.
Yeah. I mean, if you
So
could survive, I mean, I think that's the trick of a small press is just surviving. you know, it's not
yeah.
like you can't hope for like meteoric success or like I mean do you personally want to go chase down Netflix reps trying to get movies made, like
Actually not, and we have lost a couple of artists to Netflix. I think,
oh
like
right, yeah,
well, it was mainly American artists who just basically quit making comics once they started doing like animations and stuff. Well,
right,
it's great for them that they finally earn money. So like, but
yeah, and
it's yeah, slightly sad that they don't do like their Well, some of them probably still do something on the side.
right, and and there's
Mm.
always more artists like every day as well. Like you're not going
Mhm.
anywhere. We haven't hit a it's not a finite resource.
Mhm. Yeah, currently we also have a bestseller with DJ Cat, and we printed like already 5,000 copies, which is like a lot for us.
Yes, you're
Yeah,
right,
I don't
right.
want to complain, but like I wouldn't want every book to be a bestseller. This like I guess it really helps also to publish other books which don't sell.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a co-financing, but yeah, it's like a lot of packing and yeah,
yeah.
it's funny. I'm just
I
complaining when you have one like successful book. I'm like,
right.
too much work.
Yes, yes. No, suffering of success is fun, and then but it then is also I do have to do the work of.
Mm.
I've been, I opened recently like self-publishing of like physical games. And I thought, oh, it'll be fun, until I have to package like 500 of them,
Oh wow.
and then it's
That's
like,
funny. A lot of people or a lot of bookshops they like order the collaboration we did, and then I'm like, it's not the physical book, just you can download it. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's a yeah, that is like 2 years before I devised ways to put
okay.
things in bookstores in shops physically even. But yet, no, that is uh, a while. Usually, we have the primary guest is Indiepocalypse contributors, and Kush is like a sideways contributor. How was it 2 years ago at this point almost?
Yeah, just checked. It was August 21. Yeah, so a bit 2.5 years
Yeah,
almost. Yeah.
geez, it just
Mhm.
flies by. But no, I had reached out because me personally, Kush is just like I'm like, oh, it's aspirational. It's like, what if I could do that with games? Just kind of like truck along forever, publishing cool stuff. And so I was like, why not just email someone? And it turns out emailing people often works very well. um,
Mhm. Yeah, seems to work out.
so that was a kind of collaborative issue where we paired up comic artists and game developers sort of at random and said, hey, go make some games and see what happens. Um, and cool stuff happened. It's a
Mhm. How did
I'm
it go this issue for you compared to others, or like
sorry. What was that?
how did it compare to your regular issues? Or you always like invite like artists and developers like for these collaborations, or was this a special for Kush?
This was a
Mm.
special kind of like. Well, I had I had an idea where like when you have bigger ideas than you have capabilities to make them, which was like, oh, I did this Koos issue, and then I was like, what if I did then I was like, I'll do another one. with a different publisher, then maybe I'll do like a Cushier, then a different public. But this last year, the second publisher has taken a very long time. Primarily, it is um, just game developers, not collaborate. I mean, if they collaborate, they do, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit more difficult to
Yeah.
yeah, get the collaboration going. It works out, it's great, but collaborations can also be
Yes. It is
and,
also. It is also.
time consuming and confusing. But I think for us it worked, or for our artists, it worked out quite well. Like
Yeah.
comic artists were really happy with the results from the ones who finished. Well, 4 out of 5 is a good
Yeah. That's hey. That's
turnout
a
for
good
that.
ratio. I like it. But it's also it's more expensive to commission games constantly. It's a lot easier if 9
Mhm.
of them every month have already been made. Um, cause
Usually you publish like games from like like indie games which are already out there, and you kind of
yeah,
help promote them through the.
right. It's kind of like uh, you know, even 17 years ago, there was already I think a long culture of like comic small press that like games doesn't have the same thing. So I was like, well, I'll just make up for the fact it didn't exist 15 years ago when this person made this game, and just like take these games in as well.
Mhm. But gaming is much more popular than comics at the moment. As
Yes, yeah,
one of
it's
our artists just made like a really successful game, it seems, and he still makes comics, but he seems to worry much less about money anymore. So he
yeah,
says
that's
like,
it's a nice thing to not have to worry about money at all. Uh,
mm,
what game was it offhand?
um, it's called the wait, the Golden Idol. Wait, now I um, the case of the Golden Idol. Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
okay, yes, yes, I recognize that name.
How do you know it? Yeah. Yeah, it's like Latvian, like a Kush contributor who's like been contributing for the last 15 years, and he always on the side made some indie games together with his brother. And then they had this like bigger project, yeah, the case of Golden Idol, and it went really successful. They got like some Guardian review, like 5 best games of the year or whatever, and now they have a small company and employ some like 5 people. So
Yeah,
and
there. I
yeah,
think
doing like
the
new add-ons.
the
Mm,
the the ceiling for games in terms of the money you can make is generally probably a lot higher than it is with comics. It's, it is like you can just like, oh, I made one game and just like you can just like if you get extremely lucky, you can just make one game and cash out for probably years and years and years.
yeah, they got the publisher now, or this producer is like pushing them to make add-ons. It's like a detective game, and then they make new riddles. And but also they made another game now, which just won the Latvian prize. Well, probably easy. I don't think there's too many Latvian game developers. But yeah, this was internationally successful. Also, one Finnish artist, do you know Cruelty Squad? That game.
Yes. Yeah, that is definitely one that got ultra big as well.
Yeah, I tried to play it. I love the graphics, but I don't get very far. I guess I need to practice.
No, that
Just
was one of the things that I really enjoyed
really
with the
difficult to play
collaboration. There was
for
something
me.
that I forget. It was
Mm.
one of the emails like a lot of these people, these artists don't really play games or have maybe even never played games. I'm like, that's great. that's that's what I'm looking for. It provides like a very different perspectives and those sorts of things.
Mm.
If you're just not in too deep of like thinking what games can be and like what a game quote unquote is.
Yeah, I think in the end we had like four really different approaches in our game, like
Yeah,
the mushroom game, kind of like walking around the forest. It's almost like the book a bit.
yeah, yeah.
It's like
Like it was like
really relaxing.
it is very cool because like I like adaptive works and like how can you adapt something, and that is like a very cool adaptation of a, evoking the spirit of a comic within inside of a game. It
Mm,
is that
I
is one
wonder.
of
Mm.
those aforementioned um, Ash K, the game developer on that. That was one of those 30 of those aforementioned 500 tapes that I've shipped out. Includes like a little mixtape of all their games, Mushroom Season being one of them.
Ah, nice.
So it's like that's the other sort of part of what's the word I'm looking for? Like why I still skew for older stuff. It's kind of one games have a bad. I think maybe all art also has this problem, but where of past works just sort of very quickly fading away, and I want to help to be like, internally preserve past works where I can.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know how it works in gaming with
Yeah,
archiving and stuff. But yeah, in
technology.
general, yeah,
Oh, sorry, I was
you
saying
also,
oh,
yeah, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
You also collaborate a lot with comic artists for the covers of your magazine, right?
Oh
That's
yes,
like
yes.
your
Yeah, that
comic.
is like
Yeah.
kind of in the same way of getting like where you're from a Latvian focused origin. I'm like but like want to put these artists in the same spaces like other international artists around the world. Like cover artists are very specifically like not game developers, like, and have no background in games. At least when I contact them, as far as I can tell,
Mm,
as kind of a way to keep it from being less insular and like
mm,
it is, and a lot of that tends to fall to like comic artists available, and illustrators are often frequent kind of collaborators or commission devs, and they often have like very strong styles as well that just kind of draws me to them.
mm. Yeah, and I guess somehow, yeah, the mediums are still related. Like a lot of
Yeah,
comic artists are really into gaming. That makes sense.
yeah, it's all like it's all art is like in the independent art space. So much of it gets like all interconnected with everything, and and sometimes also sometimes I do just like look at um, what gets published in something like Kush, and I go, oh, that person's cool, and then I find their website. So some of it might just even be like a direct one to one sort of thing of I saw this artist there, and then found them somewhere online, and then commissioned them.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we try our best to like always list all the artists on the website that you can immediately find them.
Yeah, yeah, that is like the just kind of like being accessible is like the important part of like uh, finding people. It's like if you just publish their work, that's nice, but you need to publish it and credit them. And the more the easier someone, a reader or an audience member can find the artist from the anthology, the better it is for the artist.
Mm. Yeah, unfortunately, there's not too much money in like the indie comics publishing, but through
Right.
this, they could get some new jobs at least. So, yeah.
Right, right. So it's there's not like no one's making millions from being in Koosh, but maybe that'll get them like two other commissions, or gets them, or a lot of it, don't. It's like I try not to underestimate the fact that hey, you can put it on a resume. It's like a credit you have now.
Mm. Yeah, can also help sometimes. Yeah, and we never ask like full copyright, so like artists can republish their stuff.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's people like publishing collection of their short comics with like bigger publishers, and then yeah, they're of course free to do that. So can also be a motivation for them to make more comics if I ask them to do
Yeah.
something.
It helps
Yeah.
gives them like a backdrop, or just like someone's paid me to make more work that as often as an independent artist you would have been making anyway, because
Mhm.
it's just part
Yeah,
of.
finally, like in Latvia, people, I usually ask like, well, just artists. They're not really comic artists, but then ask them to do a comic, and then yeah, thanks to that, I invite them that they make comics. But then in their usual time, they wouldn't make comics, which is kind of funny.
Right.
Some of them started to do comics more regularly, but mostly they're still like, okay, if I invite them to do a comic. So yeah, I have to keep inviting them that they're that they will make more comics.
Yeah, they're just hey, once again, never underestimate the power of just emailing somebody and seeing,
Mm,
and seeing what they have to say and inviting them to things. That is like, I like just during this conversation, I think I just clicking around. I'm like, I'm saving this tab for later and remembering, for the end of the month, for one of these people to contact one of these people of for covers. But
which ones?
that is beside the fact. Um,
Mm,
we are actually, it goes so quickly. We're actually approaching our 20 minutes here of our first segment. But David, I have some important questions for you that I ask every every week. These are kind of like weekly go-to standards, and the first one is, what's your favorite type of rock?
the one you found on in the mountain, like the yeah mountain rock.
Yes, no, I am very familiar with the mountain rocks.
I mean, like the stones, yeah.
That broad concept of like, this is
All of them, yeah. No, I don't have a favorite mountain rock. I love all the mountain
the
rock.
platonic ideal of a rock you find in a mountain.
Yes.
Um, and follow up. And now this one is optional, of course. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
Favorite what character?
Toho, the long running bullet hell franchise of independent games.
I'll pass on this. No favorite.
Perfect. No, that is an acceptable answer, and probably I would say that probably the higher. I don't know how what the higher percentages. I've never done the math of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that said, David, thank you for joining me here. We're gonna go on a break right now. Um,
Mm-hmm. Thank you for inviting.
oh, no problem. Until then, on the other half of 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Until then, goodbye.
Yeah, bye.
Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was very okay with the whole. We are here with our next guest, who you may know from Indiepocalypse issue number 49 with Running from Shadows. It's Boris O'Brien. Boris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic with this show. I've scheduled like 2 trips yesterday, and it was like so expensive, but also it's out of the way now. I do not. I cannot imagine traveling without the potential to like just for fun, just to advertise your work. It seems utterly bizarre. Um,
Yeah.
of that kind of game dev style. Even me knowing that I am theoretically selling something at an event, it is like, Well, I haven't sold it now. What do you mean? I won't potentially have this money for 3 months. I spent it right
Yeah,
now.
long-term long-term growth is always interesting.
Yeah, it's a. I guess we'll see whether or not I travel again next year, depending on how things
Yeah.
go. But that we're not here to talk about my travel thoughts. We're here to talk to you. And so I got to ask you the first question, the Indiepocalypse question that I always ask to as a bit of informal marketing for myself. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Uh, I heard about it because itch.io kept putting it on my recommended.
Ooh, that's good for me. I guess if you publish enough, you wind up there enough.
Yeah.
Uh, so that is so. Ooh, fresh games. But and you had submitted Running from Shadows. If people are unfamiliar, what is how would you describe Running from Shadows?
Running from Shadows is, I usually call it a surrealist horror nostalgia text adventure game. And to put it into regular words that people will probably understand, it's a text adventure about the heaviness that nostalgia can bring us and just running away from the things that tie us down to the places that we've been before.
Yeah, yeah, it's um, and what got you into like because you've done you know you're as we mentioned in the first segment a kind of like the multi hyphenate style of artist where you do a lot of different things. What
Yeah.
what drew you to game development, like digital game development?
Well, because my general, like, what I got a degree in was not game development. It is actually screenwriting for film and television. So
Right.
game development was not exactly my wheelhouse. But I took a like in freshman year of college, I took a class that was about multimedia poetry telling, and I actually published my first game for that class, which is a poetry game about depression and quarantine when we were all going a little unhinged. I
Yes.
wrote Quarantine Day Something that was just a poetry dump about a day in the life of quarantine. Um, and then my senior year of college, I took this really cool class with uh, Margaret Wallace, who is in game industry veteran, and I actually wrote Running from Shadows for that class, and it sort of inspired a sort of like, oh, this is something that I could see myself doing. Actually, like this is
Right.
something that I enjoy, so that's kind of what sort of pushed me in the direction that I am now, where I still do a bunch of game development on the side because I love storytelling, and games are a very unique medium through which to tell a story that I think that I can mesh with very well.
Yeah, yeah, because even like you know if you're coming from a very traditional, capital G gamer background, like interactive fiction, Twine, that sort of stuff, you're like, oh, it's just text on the screen, but like, it's not like it is so far still from like how you would read like just like a novel. Like novels do not have hyperlinks. They do not have like you cannot zero in on one word and go branching down through a different path. Or even just merely the act of like the way text you can reveal text within a story bit by bit.
Right. Because, actually, when I wrote Quarantine Day Something, which is the COVID-19 depression poetry game,
Yeah.
which was the first thing I had ever written, I actually used Twine to make sort of like, it wasn't like an actual loop because they were all separate entries on Twine, but it was like a recursive loop of you know, you click the word "get up," I think about 20 times, and uh, that was to sort of capture the feeling of telling your brain to do something, but then your body not actually responding.
Yeah.
And that is not something that you could just capture in a straight text medium or in like a movie medium. Like, I'm sure there are ways you could try, but there is like no way for, like, it is a very unique way for the reader to experience that feeling if
Right.
they have not already experienced it themselves.
Yeah, yeah, because you can like within those other mediums, you can have like the audience observe someone else going through those feelings, uh, but you can't convey them directly like that. I think that's a lot of the difference in some ways is directly conveying a feeling onto a player, where like instead of
Right, because
yeah
video games, you are sort of taking someone along for the ride with you. Like, they are telling this story with you, which is something that you don't particularly get in other mediums where it's less interactive.
right. And like you have to, there's the different approach to conveying ideas and uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Conveying emotions is a very different approach. It's like it's a third person approach,
Yeah.
and um, that leads to just like at the base level, different ways you can tell stories.
Right. Because video games for, like, the medium of games for me is about, like, there are a lot of ways that you can get somebody to feel an emotion in any storytelling media. Like,
Yeah.
movies are very good at that. They use a lot of music and they use a lot of, like, dramatic moments. But video games for me are about getting somebody to feel very specific emotions in a way as if they were experiencing the thing and they are not just being sort of um, guided to an emotion through observing somebody else feeling it.
Yeah.
The sort of intimate nature of video games, where you are making choices and you are making decisions and you are experiencing this journey with a character, is very good for feeling empathy and helping to like actually like immerse somebody in the life of somebody else in a way that I don't think other mediums necessarily lend themselves to as easily.
Right. Right. Because like we have just like a literal body contact with the medium where like we have to touch it to interact with it. I guess you sort of do. I mean, like I was like, I guess you sort of do with books, but you can kind of remove yourself from that process if you really want to. Whether it's audiobook, get yourself one of those giant lecterns and
Right.
slowly flip one page at a time. But you can't really take that approach with a game. You have to like make it an
Like,
extension
you
of your
have to be
body.
in there making the choices, and that's
Right.
sort of one of the things that I did with Running from Shadows. Is the, like, you start the game at this sort of precipice of a difficult decision of leave behind everything you've ever known in order to explore what else is out there, and you physically have to make the decision, and you have the choice to not make that decision. You can just go back to what you knew already. Like, you don't have to make the difficult decision. And that's sort of the beauty of the choose your own adventure style, is that you are presented with the decisions and you have to actually make the decision yourself.
Right. Right. And I mean, you can always go back and attempt different decisions, but you can't like undo sort of like the decisions you made. It is a relationship you share with the game where you know but also it's a neat thing where you can very quickly reiterate and step back and sort of in a weird way, like in the way you cannot do with like a book or a movie or anything else. You can rethink your actions and reconsider them. and
Right.
especially,
Because
sorry.
you can experience movies and books in very different ways depending on who you are and how you're reading them.
Right.
Like there is like different ways to experience those things, but there is, for a book or a movie or something, there is only one sort of linear story to experience, and you don't really get to explore the things outside of that sort of central plot or that central character. Um, and the thing with video games, especially like open world adventure games, is that you get to experience the world outside of the plot as well. And there are different paths to explore, and you don't have to experience the same A to B story as somebody else who plays that game. And I think video games lend themselves very well to sort of having the player be like be a part of the story and be a decision maker in the story as opposed to just observing a story that somebody else has told.
Yeah, it's in a lot of, it's so almost a weird sort of like a interactive theater, or a sort of like a very open ended, um, what you call it, like a role playing game session almost to some extent, like with a like a one on one role playing game where it's like, your game runner has all these tools, and they laid out with you. They're just like, their systems are just far more intricate than uh, another human being with pen and paper could accomplish. But
Yeah, because I also develop tabletop games. I do both digital and like tabletop games,
yes,
and that's sort of like it is. Here is like you have the tools to explore this world, but how you explore the world is ultimately up to you. And I think that can be a very powerful form of storytelling.
yeah, because it creates a very distinct, like, like you said, we all take often very distinct experiences from non-interactive arts, but the sort of distinctness is almost built into the game, like on a built into games on sort of a fundamental level,
Yeah.
because you cannot remove yourself from like I guess you could watch, and I was gonna say, even watching, you could watch someone else to play, but even watching someone else play is its own very distinct, like, it's like it's a wholly separate thing as well.
Right. Because thinking about like people who stream video games, like there
Yeah,
are a bunch of big streamers, and even then, depending on which streamer you watch in order to like experience the story of a game, they are ultimately going to sort of take different paths and do things in a different order. Um, and that is sort of like how the medium is built, is that everybody comes away with a very different sort of experience, and that is sort of what is intended for the medium.
yeah, like you can watch someone else play through a game start to finish, and still, I often have felt like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to play because they didn't do something I was thinking about doing. They did not, they so it's like, oh, you can see, I felt like something was miss. You can feel like something is missing from their experience and from your experience having watched it.
Right.
And your like a complete quote unquote experience will be different from someone else's complete experience. It's a very, very fascinating medium.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially for once that's so like young, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's kind of also sort of the beauty of it, is that video games have definitely found their footing in sort of the cultural zeitgeist and like the mainstream of entertainment media. But they are still very new, and there is still sort of this kind of frontier still to be had of exploring the sort of limits of the storytelling abilities of the medium. And it's really exciting and sort of awe-inspiring to watch the medium grow and to watch the people who are sort of pushing the limits of what we can do with this medium of storytelling.
Yeah, because there were fits and starts, but like there is, I don't know if there has been like a strong independent boom in games in the same way that I think of like an independent movement that feels like, oh, they're doing stuff that couldn't be done on the studio scale. I mean, there is of course like early Twine explosions and these like very early. I mean, if you go back a decade ago and look at, I've been thinking of this as I add games to Indiepocalypse, or contact people to add games to Indiepocalypse from a decade ago, and thinking, oh, there's a very different you can what indie game meant to the broader culture was very different a decade ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more often like experimental games, experimental Twine games, and they kind of like, quote unquote the itch.io game, as if you will.
Yeah.
What was much more common in terms of like what is an indie game and what would wind itself up on indie game, like weekly indie game write-ups. But
yeah, definitely.
The turn of phrase has, and I think that's not. I don't think that's unique to games either. I think
Definitely.
That's happening like in all mediums, really. Where
indie has sort of become a genre term at this point.
Yeah, and it's all, and the kind of we're focusing of money and resources up at the top, or up at the top levels, is nothing unique to games at all.
Right. But yeah, and like on the other side of the coin, because of places like itch.io, it is also very easy for someone to sort of make and produce their own games.
Yeah.
Because Twine is definitely not a hard software to use. I pretty much figured it out within a couple hours of just kind of poking around. So it's also like a very accessible medium of storytelling. And I think that is also sort of the saturation of social media has sort of like lent itself to people being able to sort of be one-man shows when it comes to games. And I think that's something that's really important, is that people are able to sort of get the story that they want to tell on a platform for people to see.
Yeah, and there is like and it's that balancing act of it has never been easier for an independent to just a person out there just to make and publish their own work, but also everyone is making and publishing their own work.
Yeah, and while it's definitely sort of like a saturation of the scene, I also don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
No, not at all. I like the title of this being Indiepocalypse is very tongue in cheek. Like, I don't think there are too many games. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's like a trap that you can get caught in and think, oh, my thing didn't get big success because there's just too many games. If there were 600 less, my game would be the number one hit of the week. And it's just
right.
And I think that's like, no, that's probably not true.
Right. Like, I think part of the beauty of it, actually, of like the sort of, influx of people just sort of putting indie games out onto the scene, is because while no two people experience a story the same way, no two people are also going to tell a story the same way, because everybody is sort of bringing their own experiences and like background and ideas to the table. And I don't think anybody's sort of experiences are not valuable to storytelling.
Yeah, there's just such a wide breadth of like what a game can be. They're you look at the lineage of video games as a medium, and it looks like a very specific thing, but that's like a very narrow approach to like, oh, it's just interactive art. Interactive art can be so many different things all at once.
Right. Because, like, a video game is a very broad definition
Yeah,
that there are a lot of sort of subcategories of. Because there's, like, a video game that everybody thinks of as a video game, but then sort of the line between digital interactive fiction and video game starts to blur, especially sort of on the fringes. Um, and, labeling things as one or another, it has its own, pros and drawbacks, but it's like, it is definitely not a strict thing with strict rules that you, like, have to follow. Because that's one thing in screenwriting, is that when you are, like, writing a film or something, there are definitely sort of, like, there is the indie scene and the experimental scene, but there
yeah,
are definitely, even within those, sort of rules that you have to follow in order to make the thing that you are doing sort of work and be, like, digestible by somebody who has come to see it.
yeah,
Within video games, there are obviously, like, storytelling conventions and stuff that you can or can't follow. You can choose to follow or not, depending on what you're trying to do. But also, because of quote unquote video game is such this sort of ephemeral thing that doesn't really have one strict definition, there is definitely a lot of experimenting that can be done with the medium.
yeah, and it is like that tricky thing. Maybe uh, you stumble, and that's the even like going without the. I like the idea of talking about like form even within like the what you would think of as the formless or like the alternative avant garde. There was still like some expectations of some form and people will be like but it's also you could be trying something that reshapes things. It's impossible. Making art is a very tricky thing.
Yeah.
Um, and finding the like what your version of it
Yeah, definitely.
is so difficult. But people keep on trying, and I'll take 10,000 things that try something that maybe don't work over 10,000 that are just you know making exactly what they believe ought to be made.
Right, yeah, definitely.
But speaking of let me things and being made and things. Nope, that was not a segue. uh, uh,
What was that about trying and not exactly succeeding?
there we go. For salvaging my segue. Um, what's your favorite type of rock?
um, my favorite type of rock, I'm quite partial to metamorphic, although sedimentary does have sort of a special place in my heart because, fossils, but
Yeah.
metamorphic tends to churn out some cooler rocks, definitely.
Now I have to look up metamorphic. Ah, yes.
Metamorphic is the rock that is changed by, like, heat and pressure.
Okay. Ah, they metamorphose. Yeah, of course. I
Yeah,
thought
metamorphosis. What a concept.
yes. Oh, was that what that Kafka guy was talking about? Turning into rocks. But anyway,
Something like that.
uh, what is this? Sorry, I got very sidetracked to metamorphic, and apparently it's what is this thing? It's a Japan only PS1 game called Metamorphic.
Huh.
Huh. what are we talking? What kind of game we got? Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. But speaking of games, not getting sidetracked. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
I do not.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Um, family soft. In the meantime, Boris, thank you for joining me here today. Glad to have you
Thank
on
you
the
for having
show.
me.
It's a treat to do this each week. Where am I? There's Fubar. We are, is my alternative to us. Like I think, what if instead of us spending, $2,000 to $3,000 to go to the most expensive city in America, what if we just all stayed in our homes and talked on the internet? Seems viable to me.
Right?
Uh, but that's not fair. And plenty of those people, their companies are paying them for them to do that. But also means you have a company that can pay for your big vacation. But anyway, we're going on break. Thank you. We're going to be back in about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Goodbye for now. Show. Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Rainier Maria with Melting. No, sorry, I'm Melting. I was coming hot off of public transit woes. Uh, we are back at Indiepocalypse Radio with a guest who you may know from issue number 47 of Indiepocalypse. I think I'm basically all caught up in terms of, I think, inviting all past contributors to the show. So we can get into the exciting world of repeats with these rules that I made up for myself. Anyway, with issue 47, so this is innovation. It's George Lockright. George, how are you doing today? Oh no, I transitioned to the wrong screen. There you are. Hello.
Hello. I'm well, thanks. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing good. I too often have two guests, so I went to the two guests. I went back to chat 2, and I should have gone to chat 3. We're all set up. Now, I have an important question for you, George, and I need to know for the ongoing health of Indiepocalypse. How did you hear about it?
I was thinking about this because I genuinely can't remember, but it must have been through like the site formerly known as Twitter, which
Yes.
tends to be where I find out about most indie game related opportunities and all the cool things that the people are up to. So, um,
Yes, you
but yeah, I've been
have.
following Indiepocalypse for a while before actually, you know, getting my act together and submitting something. So
Oh, you've been making stuff for a while too, as well. So it's like, yeah, that's something I wonder oftentimes. Like, do people wait to be like, oh, I have to make something for Indiepocalypse? That
yeah,
is
it's like it's finding the right project, I think, because
right.
often, you know, I kind of feel like I had to produce something that was a bit different and maybe more a looser definition of what a game is. I think
Yes.
because that's my favorite part about Indiepocalypse is browsing through and sort of thinking, yeah, this is like such a diversity in projects of what people are, uh, you know, creating under this loose term that we call indie games. So
Yes, I mean you have in issue 47 itself is door, or
yeah.
what I would call door, is the emoji for door, and
And there's something about a game called, you know, just a single emoji that immediately I'm interested in. I don't know what it is. It
yeah,
must be.
no,
Um,
and that is part of the reason in recent years that I've been recent months that I've been. I think in the for issue 52, I think 4 of them plus the commission were hand selected. Like I've been really digging back into like rolling my sleeves up and picking some games myself and playing a bunch of games again because I'm like, yeah, I want to just like dive more into being like far more like obscure and like dense and obtuse. uh, Not to say like I listen, I'm a gamer. Don't take my gamer credit away from me. I'm a true gamer as well. I like video games where you do gaming stuff and you run around as a little guy and jump on other little guys. But it's been a weird like mental shift in doing like the tape club stuff that
Mm.
um like mentally I like somehow I'm like, oh, and doing this stuff now Indiepocalypse can be just like truly dense and weird. Well,
That's the
speaking
thing. I think there are plenty of platforms for the traditional gamer stuff. They get their time. They get their
yeah,
attention. So,
yeah,
um,
but I like sneaking a couple of them in every now and then, partially because I mean, proof positive. I had a guest on the show and contributed to the zine, and she had, after being on the show, was like, "I'm gonna try something more like more the art game realm after being on the show and playing games by other guests." Like, so there's that kind of like splash over of get
nice.
someone who's making a interesting but more traditional game, putting them in the same space as just like uh, dance art games, and that then being like, huh, maybe I should try my hand at that. But speaking of people trying their hand at art games, George, what is so this is innovation? If people aren't familiar with it,
So I think the best way to describe it is it's sort of a text based, a short text based game that kind of satirizes online entrepreneurs who make AI related projects and products. I think you've probably been exposed to a fair few over the past year with this
yes,
kind of sudden boom and interest in generative AI technology. So I wanted to sort of, I don't know, it's my small act of uh, taking the piss out of them,
yes,
essentially.
right.
Because
No,
I think
I
generative
have,
AI is something that I think a lot of people in our kind of with our interests and in our sort of sphere is find concerning and infuriating to equal degree. So
right, because it is traditional obnoxious disruption culture. That kind of like tech.
yeah,
We're gonna disrupt things,
there's
and
nothing more disruptive than trying to make a lot of money
right,
by selling out to these big corporations.
and I'm gonna truly disrupt art by simply not paying for it anymore, but but calling it
Exactly.
technology.
Oh dear. Yeah, and yeah, I struggle to have a lot of sympathy with people who work on these kind of things, and I think it shows a sort of lack of imagination and a lack of ambition. And the most frustrating thing is that they would totally disagree with me, and they would say that they are, creating the future, and it's this most wonderful innovation, and that's sort of where the title comes from, I
Yeah,
suppose.
but I mean, for what it's worth, those people also usually have mountains of cash, so you don't no need to extend that much sympathy.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think a lot of them probably have egos
Yeah,
that big enough to not care what I think. I mean, I'm just a tiny um, game designer at the end of the day, so they probably don't need big egos to not care what I have to say. But um,
or you might even realize that the website formerly known as Twitter has proven that the wealthiest men in the world have the fragilest egos ever created.
yeah, you make a very good point. Yeah,
They truly cannot handle. Well, I guess that's part of it is like not being used to the mildest of criticism, and then a little artist is like, "Oh, I don't care about that thing you make, even if it makes $80 million a day."
yeah, it's easier to dismiss than actually take on board sort of,
Right.
yeah, even mild criticism. Absolutely.
You know, the tricky thing about money is you can't take it with you. Um,
Well, someone needs to say that to certain people.
yeah. So why not make it a little easier for the people like you? Who give it to people right now. Anyway, this is.
Exactly.
I don't think I need to preach distribution of wealth on Indiepocalypse radio. I think it's kind of like a bought-in audience, of $1 million is a bit too much money for a person to have. Seems like a person ought not need that much money.
Well, I mean, if you think about, let's just limit it to the arts
Yeah.
bit and not try and tackle kind of, you know, massive topics like poverty. You know,
Yes.
let's looking at the so you've done 50 Indiepocalypse, and
Yes.
you know how many? My math isn't going to be great. That must be what, 500 games, 10 in each.
Yes.
So
500. Sometimes people submit or include multiple games. So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So you know, think if you give each of those creators a £1 million or $1 million or whatever to just feel comfortable and create art. You know, I think the added benefit of that and some of the creativity and the crazy things they could come up with, I'd much rather see that than going to Mars, for example, or some of the other crazy things that these billionaires do with their money. So
Right, and just like from like a budget standpoint, I've seen the sentiment sort of multiple times across different mediums of, you know, it costs $200 million to make one thing. What if we made 10 things that cost $20 million instead?
yeah.
And like it like what are we gaining by making the one super expensive thing? How much are we losing by not giving? Cause, sometimes art does take money to make.
Mm.
If you
And I think
want
it
to.
should take money to make. I think that's part of the problem with generative AI is the devaluation of people's time and effort and talent that goes into making art. And I think that's probably the thing that annoys me the most is that this idea of like widening access to art through this technology. It's like, well, you're not really doing that. You're not giving people the skills and the motivation and I suppose the time to learn art themselves. You're
Right.
giving them a shortcut.
It's for, I think I mentioned this on last week's show. It's kind of like for people who want to have made art, not for people who want to make art.
Yes, absolutely. Um,
Which like
and
it's
it's ultimately, I think it's up to us as creatives to try and explain and share how the act of creation is part of the joy. Um, I think
right.
it's important we don't lose that battle, lose that conversation.
And then like along the way, support people who are doing that stuff. Like this is, there's a lot of different ways uh to do that. Like this is like I'm a person who does not like leaving comments on things. It just makes me feel uncomfortable.
I'm
I don't like
exactly the same.
that one way interaction. I'm just like not good with. Uh,
Mm.
it's always been weird for me, but that's also why I have this. This is what how I prefer is like my version of leaving a comment on your itch page because I like your game is like come on this show and talk with me for 2 hours.
And I think that's much nicer as well. Like, I much, whenever I go to small game events and actually get to chat to other developers, that's always the most enjoyable
Yes,
experience. Even if I haven't played their game, it's
right.
cool to hear about what they're up to and how they're working, and yeah, kind of share advice and just encourage. I think something that comments don't really have the same meaning, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a very different approach because for some people, like that is how they prefer it. Like it's a lot easier for them to, for instance, just like oh, I leave a comment. It's also very nice to have a nice comment on something,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all, hey, we all work differently, we
Yeah,
all
I think that's the other thing for me, having been releasing small games on itch, and not really. I don't like marketing. I don't like shouting about my stuff. I just enjoy
yes,
making it and putting it out there. But whenever I do get a nice comment or someone does come up to me and say, "Yeah, I think that's really cool," or that that really, I really felt something playing that, or I enjoyed playing that, whatever the positive comment is, I think it means so much more, um because it's kind of so unexpected, I suppose. um
yeah, yeah. No, I. Oh, okay. Uh, We've got someone who I was like found your game through Indiepocalypse. Look at that. Just
oh,
recently, I'm
I'll
looking at your
take
page.
that.
It's this very game we're talking about. And that is part of like trying to create a sort of, I don't know, larger casual community sort of thing.
Hmm.
Because I don't, even this aforementioned alluded to trip, there's this large part of me is like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go all that way and do all that stuff. I have that particular anxiety of, um, well, I have nothing to offer. So I can't go to you know, industry or meetup sort of events without having a thing that is noteworthy for people to pay attention to, or
Hmm.
else I have no value. Uh, but wait, that was I don't think there's an end to that thought. um, More that there is space for, like, um, local meetups and, like, going to different game shows. Like, do you ever got to any, I don't know, I mean, I have a loose idea of where you're probably from. um,
I'm from London, so
yes.
I do have good access to different groups and things, and obviously conventions. But
Do you have like local meetups there too, like little smaller scale ones?
well, I'm obviously going to shout out. Um, there's a game writers and a game narrative meetup, which is just a lovely group of people working in or wanting to work in the game industry in a kind of writing capacity. Um, but I don't really, yeah, not a kind of general developer meetups, but I went recently to a really good event run by Now Play This, which if you're in the UK or in London, I'd recommend going to. It's a yearly kind of art game
Yes.
exhibition event in Somerset House, and they did a summer kind of it was like a day event where lots of different developers got together and just made stuff together on a set theme, and that was great fun. Um, just again, just the opportunity to actually create with other people is something I like to do more of, and definitely don't do enough of. I think it's not enough hours in the day.
Right.
Alluding to what we were talking about earlier, the need to work is always
Yes.
a
No.
limiting factor.
I have thought about that specific thing recently of, like, how much time do I actually have uh separate of it all, and I have like uh what was it? I think I said, if I don't sleep, I have 34 hours of free time, but I am going to sleep. So it's more like I have like 18 hours. Not 18, that's bad math. 28,
Just
because
say
I
you don't
sleep.
get enough sleep.
Yeah, no, no. Because I did 24 when I should have done 48. Anyway, I don't have a lot of time, of free time, partially because of working and doing all this, and that's like, no. Nor do I think everyone also has like infinite free time to, like, be make games and then also
Mm.
go to work and then also be their own marketer and then also be their own community managers and run their own discords and do their own PR and do this and that and everything.
Yeah, I think it's been a real. So this is innovation is my most recent project, and it probably like took me way longer to finish than it needed to, just because trying to fit in, like half an hour of writing or half an hour of code or whatever it is into around other things.
Yeah.
It's quite demoralizing in a way to think, man, this game is so short and it took me so long
Right.
in terms of the I guess months to finish, which but I think that's part of it. Like, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing and you get value from it, I think it's worth proceeding with. Um,
Yeah.
an hour a day is still 1 hour more than you could otherwise spend on anything. So
Yeah. There's just finite time. We have
Mm.
a finite, and it's not like you get more of it.
exactly.
It's not like there's a secret hack to getting more time besides like not sleeping. And bad news about not sleeping, that it's not a long term. You're just shaving off. You're probably just shaving off your max. So you just not see it. But that the inevitability of death aside, video games, huh? Those are crazy little things.
I think like bringing it back round to
Yeah.
our AI overlord future, it would be really nice if instead of focusing on producing technology that takes away all the fun jobs, if I can have an AI bot that I don't know does all of the menial tasks in my life, or it makes my day job easier so I can do fewer hours.
Oh,
Like I'm all for that because I'm selfish and I want to be able to spend more time doing what I want to do. But
the problem
we live in a system where that's never going to happen.
yeah, and or when it does happen, bad news. You don't get that extra money that it saves.
Don't get the extra money. Don't get the extra
Right.
time.
Yes.
Someone else does. Whoever owns the the big bot in the sky.
It's
but
like
yeah,
it's like, boss, now that you got a thing that makes screws for me, and now that I don't have to make screws anymore because you have a machine that does that, I get that screw making money in time, right? You're like, oh no, you now have no job
yeah.
and no money. And it's like, huh, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to work like this. The point of that thing is that it's supposed to give us more space and time, but unlikely.
Well, I think that was the big push behind like the Luddites, wasn't it? We think of the Luddites as this kind of backward group who hated change and advancement, but in reality, they just didn't like that machines were taking their jobs. And I think we're probably entering an age of new Luddites. So reclaim the label.
There's a weird thing where there's like a rest stop between my house in Boston and like, it's like a 24-hour rest stop with a convenience store, that kind of thing. And there's a person there, working there at like 11 o'clock at night, and right in front of them is a self-scan kiosk at the same time. So it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to give it to like, who do I work with? Like, is this thing replacing? Because somebody theoretically always has to be here, I assume, so that people don't just walk in and take stuff in the middle of the night. But but like that person looking at their inevitable job. They're just trading their replacement. And their replacement is a machine.
Yeah, it's very, very dystopian.
Yeah,
it's like you scan something and the scanner stops working, so the human comes over and fixes the machine rather than just scanning it for you. I always find that quite strange.
Yeah, there used to be 4 humans that scan things for you. Now there's one.
Yeah.
Now there's one person who watches the scanners. What happened to those other 4 people? Where'd they go? But who knows? What are we gripping for? Infinite progress. For this is all about infinite progress for the bosses up top, the good guys up top.
Yeah, who we appreciate, we admire. Obviously, they're great guys.
I mean, if we just got rid of them and instead us all benefited from them. Anyway. What's your favorite type of rock, George?
Yeah, bring it back to the important topics.
The important topics at hand.
Favorite type of rock. So I probably would go for the pebble that you find on the beach.
Yes.
But then I was thinking about this, and I realised that it's actually illegal to take pebbles from the beach in the UK. So it's in itself, the pebble on the beach is taking that as a subversive act. So I'm all for that. I'm all for pebble on the beach is the best rock.
Is that like what's the reason for that?
It's like I don't know the full. It's like one of those old laws that there probably was one person who owned all the beaches and he didn't want people nicking his pebbles. So it's like, right, put a law in place, and we haven't got rid of it. So I I make a point of just taking a pebble whenever I'm at a rocky beach.
And
Screw the man.
and then watch out. Keep an eye
Yeah.
out for the pebble cops.
They're gonna come for me.
Yes, I imagine it's one of those things that is like, if everyone's taking pebbles, it ruins the beach.
Yeah, we'll run out of pebbles eventually.
Yeah, and then
We'll be able to keep the sea back.
Then we run out of beaches, and then hey, if you want to be underwater, hey, good luck with that, man. You live your underwater lifestyle. But speaking of underwater lifestyle, plenty of yokai live underwater. George, what's your favorite Toho character? Or do you have a favorite Toho character?
I don't, but I'm open to suggestions.
I have no suggestions. You must go into the world and find your own.
I will do my own research and get back to you.
I expect thorough research from all. That's the one weird thing I notice while doing this show is sometimes I will, and I guess that's just like general life. Is sometimes you adapt the speech mannerisms of like research is of course how I say it as an American. But you fall into the research lifestyle, But anyway, back. That's enough. George, thank you for joining me here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great to chat.
Linguistics, and I survived an entire segment without asking about Tesco meal deals. Maybe we'll get back to. Maybe that'll be our intro.
That's the third question. Yeah.
That's my personal fascination as someone who does not. Anyway, we'll get back to this when we get back from the break. In the meantime, see you all in the other half of 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Goodbye for now. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Screaming Females with Soft Domination. We're back here, and of course, back from the break, we teased it. We're coming in. David, Boris, and George were all here together. Finally, with George, we teased at the beginning of the break. Now we're coming back after. What's your ideal Tesco meal deal, George? I need to know.
Oh gosh.
What is your combo?
My doorbell's just started running, so my doorbell's started ringing. So clearly, someone is trying to deliver a Tesco meal deal to me right now.
Yes.
Hopefully, you can't hear that in the background.
I can't hear it, but it's fine.
Oh gosh. Well,
it's fine.
I'll quickly. I don't know. I think with
very aggressive doorbell.
I will give you time to escape.
I'll tell you what. I'll come back.
Yes.
Come back to you.
Well, meanwhile, Boris, we have another thing I was talking about. Indie City Games.
Yes, I just joined the Discord.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
They just sent me Seb from Indie City Games, just contributor to the zine, friend of the show, also known as Worm Food, had just sent me a zine that they made.
Nice.
All about different devs and games within the Indie City Games group.
Yes, I have discovered this.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I am. I like the show is, if nothing else, trying to connect people together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's also a Chicago film scene Discord that I'm in that has like a weekly meetup at a local bar. So I think that I keep meaning to go to, but have not.
Yes.
So in case, on the very small chance that anybody from the Chicago film scene Discord is watching, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go to the Frog at some point. I promise.
Yeah, I see. That's also somewhere I want to like. I would like see. There's all these places. Part of why I want to travel is I would like to go to places, and the internet is all well and good, but I like to meet people sometimes.
Yeah.
It is my preferred mode of interaction is like in person, where I can see someone and go, let me try and parse what they're just a hangout. I like hanging out.
Yeah.
But
hanging out is definitely a good way to hang out.
Yes. What other purpose to human existence if not to hang out?
Right.
If we could simply hang out until we expire, that would be the ideal form of life. No work, no bosses, just hanging out.
Just vibes.
Exactly. That's truly the point of life, really.
What is Big Monkey Brain for if not to vibe?
Exactly. We're just animals that think too much.
Yeah.
I think of something I've thought a lot. Maybe I can't remember if I saw this somewhere else or if this was an independent thought, but the idea of social media and like, imagine if a dog was aware of 500,000 other dogs all at once.
Oh,
Constantly. They had a box that was full.
That really is a way to put it into perspective, isn't
Yes.
it?
Like, imagine if a dog had a box that had 500,000 other dogs in it. That's just too many.
It's too many dogs, man.
Yes. That's what it's like. How I interact with you. I come. I do the show once a week. I hang out with friends once a week. I'm done. I don't log on. But George is logged back. I gotta know. You tried to dodge the question.
yeah. I mean, there's. I won't give you the long answer, but I don't like mayonnaise, so
Okay.
most sandwiches have mayonnaise in, and I can't eat mayonnaise. So, like, that's my big campaign, is to have supermarkets offer more sandwiches without mayonnaise in. But so I'd probably just go with a pasta pot. Hula hoops, best crisp. Again, don't know if you have them in the US, but they're
No, we don't.
We
But
do not.
the name is familiar.
big potatoey hoops, crunchy.
Are they like Funyuns?
I don't know.
I think Funyuns are a corn-based chip, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Gotta look at what a Funyun is.
Wait a minute. Have I had? I don't know if I've had hula hoops, but I feel like I've had a hula hoop derivative before. These are like potato circles, potato hoops.
Yeah.
I've definitely had potato hoops before.
They are a delicacy.
I bet
And I'm a big water drinker, so I ran it off with just a bottle of water. So yeah, not the most exciting meal deal. I feel like if you get any other UK peeps on and ask them, they'll give you more exciting options.
I often do. I don't remember when I learned about the Tesco meal deal, but it changed my life.
You mentioned less mayonnaise on sandwiches, and then I got distracted looking up the origin of mayonnaise. And apparently, people do not agree on when mayonnaise as a like condiment or a sauce sort of like was originated. But apparently, this is like a direct quote from Wikipedia, quote, most hypotheses do, however, agree on the geographical origin of the sauce as Mahon in Menorca, Spain. So there's your mayonnaise fact of the week.
I mean, I just wish they hadn't done that in Menorca.
Oh, you guys
Fair.
understand. Like, I understand why they put mayo on so much stuff, because like, if you like it, it's a workhorse. It smooths out so many rough edges of a sandwich if you like mayo.
Bulks it out, nutritional value as well.
Yes.
Probably quite
Of course.
Yeah.
It's just like a.
I didn't used to like mayonnaise, but it is sort of grown on me over the years.
What the hell is salsa golf?
Salsa golf?
What is this thing? Mayonnaise with ketchup? What do you? Okay, it's like a different mayo ketchup kind of condiment. Okay.
Oh, wow. I wish I
I
had
thought
looked that
people
up.
just called that mayo chup.
No, nowadays they do. Nowadays, in this world where mustard mayonnaise is real, this bizarre world we live in.
It's like 3-in-1 body wash for condiments.
Yes. Yeah, no, I got some discounted like mayo buffalo whatever, and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Worth the dollar whatever I paid for it. No, the thing with the Tesco meal deal is it's something that I lack in like the the Northeast. It's just like I think that's even similar things in other parts of the U.S. even have these kind of like plus.
Why is there lore surrounding salsa golf?
Wait, why is there what's surrounding salsa golf?
There's like lore because
Oh.
I looked it up because I am nothing if not just researching things for no reason all the time.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this is another pull from Wikipedia.
Yes.
Is according to legend, the sauce was invented by physician Luis Federico Leloir in the mid 1920s at the golf club at the seaside resort Mar del Plata. And apparently it's just because he got sick of eating shrimps and prawns with just straight mayonnaise. So he's just mixed it with a bunch of other stuff like ketchup and lemon or whatever.
Imagine like you could like be one day you're just like the weird friend who just mixes sauces weird, and the next day you have created a new condiment.
Yeah. Apparently it's also, aside from mayo and ketchup, is also made with pimento, oregano, and cumin.
Yeah. It's like I I wish to be that one of those guys. That's my real goal in life. To be a weird
Fair.
a weird condiment mixer who just makes new condiments just because they felt like it.
You should
create
commission
the
an indie
Indiepocalypse
game.
condiment.
Sorry. Oh. Sorry. What was that?
You should commission an indie game on mixing condiments to make sauces.
I should just like. Oh.
It'd be
That
fun.
is like a physical game almost like that's like almost like an installation game.
Yeah,
And
there
if it works
is.
out, we can make it for you.
You could also go the route of like games like there's like those like bartending games where you
Yeah.
have to like mix the drinks yourself according to the customer. I think that could also be like a good medium for a sauce based game.
Oh, there's so much. I'm plugging sauce based game in my brain for later use.
I am also plugging sauce based game into my brain just because it's such a sentence.
Yeah, I as a sauce lover, um, I think a lot about it. But yeah, I was because I think do they have I did does the Midwest has like plussed up like
The
convenience
Midwest
stores.
has so many sauces.
Right. Oh, that's the other thing. When I travel, this is a thing. Now I don't know the travel extent of other people, but so a personal travel thing is I like to eat like the very normal. Not necessarily always like the fast food, but like the normal food because it's like instead of like
Yeah.
oh go to Chicago, we have the best Thai restaurant here. I'm like well I also have good Thai restaurants. But like I want something
Yeah.
that I can get like Chicago specific, that I'm not going to find somewhere else.
Yeah. A lot of people's go-to is like the deep dish pizza, which Chicago is very famous for.
Yeah.
But that is not like the most Chicago food.
Right.
If you like want like a real like Chicago, da bear sort of food, get an Italian beef
Right.
and get it dunked. Like that is the most Chicago thing that I can think of in terms of like cuisine.
Right. Like when I go there, I think like what is the kind of food they would get people in the region get like all the time and not even think about it, Like
Yeah.
like that is like, if you're in the New England area, it's like I realize this now as I've traveled to other places don't have it so constantly everywhere. It's like if you're not getting chowder, what are you doing? Like that
Chowder is a very New England food. Yeah.
it's just a big bowl of cream and clams. It's but I miss it when I travel other places and I can't get it. It's like the only soup I ever really eat.
Like you can get it, but it's gonna be like in a can at like a grocery store.
Right, I'm
sure you can find a can of Campbell's clam chowder at like Julasco or something.
Gross. I can't. I cannot eat canned clam chowder. It's just that is. I realize that is my regional food snob thing. Is I just can't eat it. It's just
Yeah, that's fair.
it's the kind of. Oh, I'm thinking it's Italian beef now. When is the next Bit Bash? And how can I get into Bit Bash? Do I know enough people over there in Chicago now that they will let me into Bit Bash? Or can I sneak into Cake? Can I sneak into Cake somehow? Because I'm going to Staple in Austin in a couple of weeks, which is like a indie comic show.
Yeah.
Like 90. It's like an indie art show that is 90% indie comic show. But I don't know if Cake is the same way. If I can backdoor that, because that's part of what I'm doing is like backdooring my way into
Yeah. But yeah, if you're ever in Chicago, Al's Beef is definitely sort of. It is my preference for Italian beefs.
yeah. I am logging it. I am putting it in my brain. Oh, I should put. I'm sorry. Part of this tab thing is I have like because I have 30 projects going on at once. I'm often thinking like, oh, I should, it's like, oh, I should commission this person. I should invite this person, uh, to be in the zine. I should invite this person to the monthly, to do a monthly tape club entry. Just like 80 million little things that I'm thinking about constantly.
Just plastering sticky notes all over the folds of your brain.
Oh, but that's the thing. I don't plaster any sticky notes. I basically keep no notes.
Just think a thought and just let it leave.
A guest on next week's show is this is the 144th episode of this show, and for the 145th, that will be the first guest I send a calendar invite to. I just just do things, and I just trust my brain to remember them. And
Yeah.
for what it's worth, it does remember them.
Yeah, because like originally when I agreed to be on last week's show before I figured out I couldn't make it,
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'm not doing anything Saturday. And then I was like, oh, right, the Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade is that day. I can't be on the show that day because
Yes.
I'm going to be downtown screaming.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I don't go anywhere, so I'm good with that. And I have infinite space to fit people in, and just hope and people remember when I post online. I go, oops, they tagged me. Andrew tagged me. Uh-oh. Now I remember that I have to be on this show. That's
Yep.
my calendar warning. But weird history of games, going through just the stuff on the BitBash page.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, so many games just kind of I don't want to say come and go. That's a bad way of putting it, but
Have their moment in the sun.
right, what catches these things, what is catching them and keeping them in culture? I don't know, but it's something it's something I think about a lot of how can games always be sort of have a really broad canon that's preserved, and part of that is young, it's just the youth of the medium, I think. There's not as many true sickos out there who are no, you have to constantly be aware of how 8 million of these you don't know this very specific subgenre that I'm obsessed with,
Right? You're not a true video games fan if you don't know.
Right. If
I don't know.
if you don't know the early aughts Twine scene, what do you know?
Right?
You've never heard of video games before. What is that equivalent? And I think the curation and just the way the industry just kind of burns everyone out constantly.
Yeah.
Obviously is a big part of that. My secret technique that I've realized that I've thought about is that I'm just going to stick around long enough, pretending that I belong here until simply nobody else, enough people, don't remain, and then new people go and go. Oh yeah, Indiepocalypse is a thing that's always been around. It should be a thing.
Yeah, just out survive everybody else, and people will have to take you seriously because there's
Yeah.
nobody else left.
And all, but to the point where all the new entries, Indiepocalypse is just something that's always existed, and therefore must be important.
Right? Prestigious institution by virtue of just being the cockroach of the uh, indie game scene.
That's the goal. You know, that's why it's self-sufficient and requires no money, or requires money. Requires actually a lot of money, but well, not a lot. A lot in my mind, it's a lot, but you know what I mean. $800 a month is not like a lot of money, but it's like, that's a lot.
It's also nothing to sneeze at, you know.
No, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money. It's that weird thing where I needed to get. Anyway, we're not getting we don't need to get into the weeds of money and my budget. Let me close this BitBash tab. How do I get there though? How do I BitBash? Let me in. Oh, they have an X page. Sorry, they have a Twitter page. I can look at that.
I think it's so funny that everybody just collectively decided that no, we're dead naming Twitter.
Yeah, it was. It's actually a stupid name. I don't like that guy. So put those two together.
It's very similar to because in Chicago we have a lot of things that get renamed all of the time for really stupid reasons. So it's I don't because technically the Sears Tower I think has been the Willis Tower for probably the better part of a decade.
Right.
Or maybe even more. I don't think I've ever heard anybody actually call it the Willis Tower because that's just not what it's called. Right. It's been the Sears Tower since it got built.
It's a tower. You cannot rename a tower. It's what are you doing? You can't just go renaming structures. It's very bizarre. But anyway,
it is quite bizarre.
But that's beside the fact. I am cleaning up the business here. There is so much stuff. I want to. Yeah, were they showing? No, okay, this was a broader show because I'm like, were they showing House? And they were, maybe, but as part of a larger show, maybe. I don't know. But
House MD?
No, just Houseu, the surreal Japanese film from what was like the 70s. But that is now I have to. I'm just talking about this constantly, so I think about this sort of thing, and I'm like, I should do this, I should do that. This should. Now I get why people do things with teams, you know.
Yeah.
And like pairs at least. There's a lot of work involved. Like, you know, you can't simply screenwrite and then it turns into a thing that you have written and then it turns into a movie. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people involved in that process.
Yes.
A frankly dizzying amount of people are involved in that process.
Yeah, it's just like people. And the average person doesn't even know what a best boy is, but but you need one. They're involved. There's
Yep.
It's just like filmmaking and like television making into its own. It's just like very different art form where like a bunch of people swoop in to make a thing and then just kind of disperse. Like there are companies, of course, but like not like it's a different like creation structure than game development. You know.
Yeah.
You know, game studios are not like, I have a designer. Let's, you're not seeking out directors, for game designs we have lying around. There's no like, what's the thing? What's the word? The black something of that, like those scripts or whatever. What's that? I'm trying to think of what that's called.
Black box?
Is it the black box? It's like unmade scripts. Oh, I forget what it's called.
I think it's black box.
I knew there was a term for like just like that collection of unmade scripts that sometimes they get made, and I don't remember. I'm not a Hollywood type. I just occasionally listen to them talk. I don't know this kind of business. I'm not. They were going to build a film studio over here at some point. They never did. I think I was going to do that at some point in life. I was like, what if I made film? Who knows? Art. But we are getting closer to 2 hours of this show, which is not my heart out, but it's when I go, I often think this show should only be 2 hours long. That's enough of a show to listen to.
That's enough talking.
Yeah.
We don't need more than that.
Right. People theoretically listen to this show. I don't know. My unofficial catchphrase for this show is that I don't know how it is to listen, but it's fun to record.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. People say things and then I open my mouth to respond and black out. So whatever words happen after that just sort of happen.
Right. And my instinct on the show is whenever I don't hear someone talking, I just start talking.
Yeah.
And go, I'm the host. I need to talk, or else it's not a show. But,
right.
And you got to make a show, and I can't just. And listen, we could sit around talking about the bean forever. Those 5 Chicago things that I know.
Yeah, it's there's a couple topics that everybody knows about Chicago, and the bean is one of them.
London is,
and the bean is. It's also the thing that people know the least about because it's just sort of a big metal thing.
Right. They know it conceptually, and I can't talk, And then we just start rambling about other things. But does anyone else have any like pressing statements they need to get? Any questions or anything like that as we wrap up the show? I will take silence as a no.
Just absolute silence.
No, that is a common thing, and it's also a sweet silence I like to hear because I'm like, nice. That means
pondering whether to use this platform to continue my crusade against mayonnaise, but
no,
I think we've done enough of that.
There was last year into this year, was like as I talk about food a lot on this show because it's fascinating to me, and I like hearing about other people's stuff. I like just kind of average stuff. I had like a Lion bar again recently the other day.
Huh.
Because I kind of like Lion bars actually. But
yeah, as soon as this show is over, I'm staring hungrily at the Uber Eats page right now. Because I discovered a really good Mexican restaurant that has absolutely dynamite steak quesadillas, and I'm salivating looking at the Uber Eats page.
Yeah, I have to think because my technique often with traveling is you order a large pizza because it's usually not that expensive. Like you don't have to pay big delivery fees, and it can sustain you usually your whole trip.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, that means I traveled down to Austin. I got one pizza and then I left. When it's like I want to try other stuff too. But that is like I had a chance. There was a thought where maybe I would go to London. One of the Indiepocalypse. Oh, actually, it was the Indiepocalypse Cooch issue. Got into EGX, I think. Yes, EGX.
What's EGX?
It's like a game show in London, right?
Ah, yeah. I remember.
I think it was in the Left Field collection, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the contributors went there and made like small exhibition.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, there was somebody that I think I was even weirdly enough
Really
at a
does.
show, a different show in the U.S. at the time.
But yeah, about Cake, I think that could be a good show for you. I'm just following them online, but
Yeah,
seems like a really nice alternative comic show.
yeah.
Now they have applications open for like they just opened a couple of days ago. I think you can apply now for Cake.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, and now that's what got me thinking. And like the last time I was envious of a show was I think you posting, David, that you're going to either the last or the last before SPX, and I was like, damn, I wish I could go to SPX.
Yeah, SPX is super nice.
Uh,
And then yeah, last year I went to New York to what is it called? Rockaway Beach
you're right.
Comic Festival. It's a really small one, so that was just great for hanging out. It was like 30 stands and almost no visitors, as it was like the metro broke down or something, so it was
Oh,
hard to get there. Took like 2 hours by bus from like Manhattan to go to this Rockaway Beach.
yeah,
But it was
that
super fun. So like I really discovered a lot of indie artists, like really cool stuff.
yeah,
But
that's
SPX, great, yeah, whole US scene goes there, I guess.
That's something I've been looking
Yeah.
more for in like games of like that kind of small scale, like because there's a lot of them. Like I mentioned, Cake. I've done
Well,
T.
SPX is quite big. It's 400 tables.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Well, it's
very
still maybe small compared to San Diego Comic Con. I have no
right,
idea
right.
how big it is. But,
It's like the big version of like the indie show, but it is still very
mm,
much like an indie show,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah, I
it's
want to go there again if I can. Not this year. I'm like busy traveling to European festivals, but
right,
hopefully
right.
next year again.
One person can only travel so much. It's a
Yeah, sometimes I manage to send artists to go there to represent Kush.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a one man business, yeah, at the moment.
I feel like I've joked about that before of like, regional Indiepocalypse representatives, you know, go to these shows where I can't and show it off along with your own stuff cuz I also send people like little editions, these little physical tapes sometimes when they go to shows like, "Oh, I'm going to this. Send me some Indiepocalypses along with, my own that you had made for me." I'm like, yeah, "I'll do them there."
Yeah, I think it's a great way for like if an artist doesn't have so many stuff for themselves to sell, like
Yeah.
yeah, then I give them Kush and they can sell some Kush next to it.
Yeah, and that's that
And yeah, I get the commission on the books they sell, of course. So yeah, it's like win-win.
right.
Yeah.
And that's like that problem is like made even worse with like games because I go to a lot of game shows and very rarely do like devs have things to sell at shows. Like it's just like culturally not a thing.
Yeah,
So
you just download everything. I guess it's
right,
more online, right?
or a
Yeah.
lot of times they're showing off games that aren't even done. Like that's just like the video game con culture is about like it's like a preview culture.
Like promoting what's coming up.
Right, right. So it's like imagine going to like an SPX and nobody had comics to sell. They just had here's some panels from comics that I'm working on. That's kind of like what game shows are like.
Yeah, kind of disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very weird,
Or
but that's like
or all like really exciting stuff. Like wow, I want to get it like next year.
right. Like I mentioned PAX a couple times, and if I went there, I would bet like there would be like some game resellers maybe, but I don't know if there are any like I'm the person who made this game. You can buy this game from me here. That number might be zero.
Yeah, really exotic.
It's a very odd thing, which also means that like it preferences the kind of people who can afford to make a trip and not expect to make any money back.
Yeah.
Should be like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's always a decision to make, like, yeah, how much you want to invest for such a trip. Also for the comics fairs, it can
right,
be. There's some shows you sell really a lot, but then usually hotel costs and travel costs.
right,
But then,
right.
yeah, it's also kind of promotion. You meet new people, so yeah. And
Yeah.
then I think it's always worth it. But yeah, maybe not financially, but just for
No, no,
having fun.
but there is always the
Yeah.
potential that you could make back your money. You know, you could break even.
Mm.
Like it is kind of like a built-in part of that trip where it's like I was saying, hey, when events start back up, everyone who's going to game events bring stuff to sell and only bring stuff to sell. I don't think that happened. I don't think it happened.
Mm.
I think we went back straight to the preview culture that games is. But anyway, um, if no one has anything else, I'm going to start wrapping up. Um, but so
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us. It was
oh
also fun for me to discover the other creators and follow their work, and already
Definitely.
played some
yeah,
small games by them. Really interesting, like
that is
cool stuff you're doing.
my goal. Like my goal with Indiepocalypse is at least worst case scenario, each developer gets 9 new fans. Um, and and my goal with
Yeah, you
this
got
is like
one at least now.
right. And the same with the radio show is like if even if no one listens, even if nobody was listening to it, at least someone met 2 new people today, and they have 2 new
Right?
followers. Like it's all this kind of slow scale, uh, gradual kind of thing of not being like, oh, I need a wish list, I need 30,000 wish lists so that I can make, 20,000 sales, or else I can never make games again. My studio is closed. Goodbye, video games. Like, no, what if we just kind of kept it low risk, low. I talked about this a lot a couple of weeks ago with ironically another indie comic publisher, Clubzine, Anna from Clubzine, about like low risk,
Oh,
low.
from Poland. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
They're from Poland.
Yeah, I believe
Clubsy.
so. They're in Japan now,
Oh
but
yeah, that's
I
cool.
think they
Oh yeah, could be. Yeah, they're into manga.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
nice.
she was originally from Poland, uh, and there was like we're talking a lot about this it's this idea of low risk, low stakes art, and it's nice to have instead of giant, massive gambles that take years of your life, and
Mm.
you're betting on them to sustain you, and they may not. I'd rather people work normal, it'd be nice to do art for a living, but it's also nice to have a stable, 9 to 5 that's low stress, and then also your art can be low stress because neither of them are so dependent on you to survive. But speaking on a necessity of survival, George, hello, welcome.
Hello.
I'm going clockwise on the stream. Where can people find your stuff if they're looking to find your stuff and help you sustain yourself artistically in the future?
Yes. Let me get this. Let me get this right, because I'm terrible at self promotion, as we discussed. So you can find my stuff on itch.io. My username on there is Larkwriter, LARKWRIGHTER.
Perfect. And you also, I looked it in the chat. You also, if you just go to georgelarkwright.com, you have your own website.
Yes. A place on the web to put stuff.
Yeah. It's a cool place. Boris, where can people find your work? Should they be looking to find your work?
You can find me on itch.io at Rodent Chronicler, all sort of one word squished together. You can find me on Twitter at Dollar Tree Tea on Twitter. That's generally where you can find out about what I'm doing. what I'm up to.
Perfect. And David, where could people find where if people are looking for Koosh? What's the best way to get to Koosh?
Maybe Instagram. You can go to Kush Comics, like Kush written with Kush, and comics also written with Komikss. That's like the Latvian way to write it. So, but yeah, you can try to write in any way. Kush Comics in Instagram. You should find it, and there you find the links to our website and then to Twitter. And yeah,
Yeah, and I also linked to the website itself, which is that Comics mentioned earlier, KOMIKSS.LV. It's just like the website.
yeah. There's overview of all the books and projects we do.
Yeah, I in terms of me just taking things wholesale, like I'm often want to do for uh, the monthly tape club I'm going to be mentioning later, I just took like your subscription model. Like, what if I just made a subscription model, which is people just pay for a subscription, and I don't have to go through Patreon and do something else. It's a thing you buy, and it's like just like worked easier for me this time. What if it was just an item on a storefront that you bought? Um, But speaking of that, Indiepocalypse, of course, you can find it at indiepocalypse.com, indiepocalypse.com/submit if you'd like to submit your game, indiepocalypse.com/Patreon if you'd like to subscribe monthly to Indiepocalypse. That is for $5 a month. At that tier, you can get the brand new commission game each month. It's a cool, and then also if you want to buy any of the other issues, I think they're on sale for $10. So it's kind of like you don't pay extra money to get them. Then there's, of course, indiepocalypse.com/tapes if you would like to get Indiepocalypse in a cool physical edition. I have them in like USB sticks inside of neat little cassette cases. And launched fairly recently is this is unrelated Indiepocalypse in other than the fact that I make them both, which is the Pizza Pranks video game tape club, which is a monthly release of games on that same cassette case model. That's one new game each month, and they're cool little it's just like a cool club to get indie games. Sign up for that. The first one, the March release is An Outcry by Quinn K. et al. There's a lot of people that worked on that game. It would take me another 5 minutes to say them all, but yes, and then there's going to be that is if you imagine tiers of my work, Indiepocalypse. Mentioned this briefly when I was talking with George. Indiepocalypse, it's the weirder, obscure, denser, artier stuff. It's like the densest. This is me making like going increasingly alternative with games. The tape market, which yes, that's the other thing. PizzaPranks.com/tape market if you would like to have your game on that physical format. I sell them as print on demand on my site, or I can print and ship you a bunch of copies for you to sell at local events or just to have. And I basically print all of those more or less at cost, generally. So it's not like it's very expensive because I don't want to be too expensive for people. It then to be unsustainable. Of like, I made a small $10 game. I have to pay $7 for the tape. What? That's not sustainable. Instead, you only pay like $2.50, which is basically material costs plus a little bit of rounding and labor, mostly rounding up. That's it though. I think that's it. Oh no, yeah, because I was talking about the logistics of then the tape club is in between of more commercial games, obviously because people are selling them. But they could be non-commercial and still, whatever games people are thinking as traditionally commercial games. Then the tape club is, hey, what are the biggest games? At least at first, what are the biggest games that people that I know and like me make, and then I put them in there. So if you want physical editions of cool games that you probably even might know, that's the place to go. And that's it. I don't have any other stuff. No more. David, Boris, George. Thank you all for joining me here today. Glad to have you on the show. True pleasure to have you you know, in the zine or working with the zine or just like making your stuff in general. I'd like that it exists. Thank you all for listening, and that's the end of the show. Goodbye, everyone.